We are sharing.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It is cold out, so I was a little worried that y'all wouldn't brave the storm, which is not actually a storm. So, yes. So be safe out there. Thank you all so much for being here. This is Left Bank Books, Schlafly Public Library, and LeUyen Foundation presents award-winning and best-selling author and illustrator Luen Yang and LeUyen Pham to discuss their new can't-miss graphic novel rom-com, Lunar, New Year Love Story. We are so excited to present these two graphic novel superstars. If you didn't see all the titles when you were walking in, yes, those are all associated with our two fantastic people that we have up here in front of the room. So thank you all so much for being here. It is with your support that we are able to bring in such incredible authors. When you support Left Bank Books, your money goes directly back into the local economy. It helps build your streets, keep your parks free. It helps support independent bookstores, and it also helps support this incredible library that you are in right now. Libraries rely on funding from local taxpayer dollars. So thank you all so much for shopping local, for supporting this event, supporting this library. I want to give you a little bit more information about LeUyen Foundation if you are not familiar with them. They are 2 years old. We are very happy to partner with them and have several partnerships coming up with them as well. They have partnered with We Need Diverse Books, which in May is launching the May Book Project to help schools and libraries build and maintain robust Asian American youth literature collections for all readers. We are raising national awareness of the need to create inclusive libraries, give readers access to up-to-date Asian American youth literature, and provide funding to donate books to at-need libraries. The project is inspired by St. Louis high school students who asked their schools for more Asian American literature during Asian Pacific American Heritage Month and were ignored. The May Book Project is a vetted, high-quality, and free resource to help libraries support readers. And we are happy to have them as a co-sponsor of tonight's event. For graphic novel fans, I will say that we do have an event in February with Nate Powell, award-winning, National Book Award-winning author of the March trilogy. He will be here in St. Louis at the store for his new book on February 22nd, I believe. I didn't actually write it down, so you might want to check my date, but I'm really excited to bring him in again. He is just a lovely, lovely person. I want to tell you a little bit about tonight's book, Lunar New Year Love Story, which I'm halfway done with, so no spoilers. Taylor had to keep spoilers away from me earlier because I didn't have enough time to finish reading it last night as I had expected to. So, she was destined for heartbreak, then fate handed her love. Val was ready to give up on love. It's led to nothing but secrets and heartbreak, and she's pretty sure she's cursed. No one in her family for generations has ever had any luck with love. But then a chance encounter with a pair of cute lion dancers sparks something in Val. Is it real love? Could this be her chance to break the family curse? Or is she destined to live with a broken heart forever? Booklist in a Starter review calls it a multi-generational, multi-layered, multicultural masterpiece of searching for lasting empathic connection. The Kirkus says, Valentina's quest is full of swoony moments that will satisfy romance readers, while her fearless journey of personal growth will win over everyone else. And now a little bit about our authors. Luen Yang writes and sometimes draws comic books and graphic novels. He was named a National Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Library of Congress in 2016, and advocates for the importance of reading, especially reading diversely. His graphic novel, American-Born Chinese, a National Book Award Finalist and Printz Award winner, has been adapted into an original series on Disney+. His 2-volume graphic novel, Boxers and Saints, won the LA Times Book Prize and was a National Book Award finalist. His nonfiction graphic novel, Dragon Hoops, received an Eisner Award and a Printz Honor. His other comic works include Secret Coders, The Shadow Hero, and Superman Smashes the Klan, and the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. In 2016, he was named a MacArthur Foundation Fellow. And LeUyen Pham has illustrated more than 100 books for children. 100. That's amazing. 138. We don't have all of those in the back of the room, but the ones that we do have are beautiful because the illustrations are done by a fantastic person. Including the Caldecott Honor book Bear Came Along by Richard T. Morris and the best-selling Princess in Black series, which I know some fans over there. That is by Shannon and Dean Hale. She is the co-creator, along with Shannon Hale, of the best-selling graphic memoirs Real Friends, Best Friends, and Friends Forever. Her own books include The Bear Who Wasn't There and Big Sister, Little Sister. A graduate of the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, LeUyen lives in Los Angeles with her husband and 2 sons. Now, without further ado, would you all please help me in warmly welcoming our prestigious guests for the day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Both Luen and I are from California. The cold was shocking. It was shocking. Yeah. It felt like the weather was trying to kill us. So for you all to risk your lives to be here with us.
We were all prepared to just have a conversation between the 2 of us and drink some hot chocolate and call it a night. So thank you for bringing me a letter.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to get a chance to share with you all. So I am Gene.
I am Win. You can call me Win.
That's right. And this is what we look like as cartoons. This is what we look like in real life. What we figured we would do with you all tonight is first share with you all how we got our career started. And second, tell you about this collaboration that we just did. So I'm going to start. I am a comic book writer these days. And comics and I go back. We go way back to when I was in 5th grade. I look like a 5th grader. Those glasses were very fashionable in the 80s. Okay, so don't judge. Back when I was a kid, every local bookstore had what was called a spinner rack. This was a wireframe rack that would carry comics. It would carry months worth of comics. It would sit in the corner of the store. You could spin the whole thing so you could see all the comics. One night, my mom took me to our local bookstore. I saw this issue of Marvel 2-in-1 sitting on that spinner rack, starring The Thing and Rom the Space Knight. These are 2 Marvel characters that I thought looked so cool. One of them was a giant orange rock monster. The other one kind of looked like a robot. I really wanted it, but my mom refused to buy that comic book for me. She thought those 2 Marvel characters looked way too scary. But she saw how sad I was about not getting a comic book, so she bought me this instead. This was the latest Superman comic. And she bought this for me because Superman is every parent's favorite superhero, right? Unlike Rom and Thing, he's not scary looking at all. He's actually very good looking. But I thought he was very, very boring. These days, I'm a big Superman fan. Back in the 5th grade, I thought he was like the most boring character ever. He's like this giant flying Boy Scout wearing his blue uniform, flying around Metropolis looking for good deeds to do. But I brought this home and I read it, and in this story, the atomic bomb drops in 1986. So it's 1984 as I'm reading it. It's like I'm reading about the future. The atomic bomb drops in 1986, it kills off almost everybody on the planet. The few survivors that are left, they gather into these little villages that are pretty lawless. So a group of men decide to get together, dress up in medieval-style armor, and ride around the apocalyptic countryside on these giant mutated dogs to fight crime. They call themselves the Atomic Knights. Superman, because he's Superman, is one of the survivors. He teams up with these Atomic Knights. They have this adventure together. And in the last few pages of the story, it's revealed that the entire thing is just a dream that's happening in somebody's head. But that did not stop the story from freaking me out. I spent nights thinking about this, thinking about the atomic bomb, about mutated dogs, about Superman, and about comic books, about how these drawings on a page did something inside of my brain that had never been done before. So I eventually became a comic book geek. I would go to the comic book store as often as I could. I bought these long boxes, these cardboard boxes, and filled them up with issues. I do have to say, even though the very first comic book in my collection was a DC comic, I very quickly became a Marvel fan. You all know this, right? There are these two big companies, big superhero companies in America, Marvel and DC. They've had this rivalry that's lasted for decades. Right now, I think Marvel's probably winning. When I was a kid, for whatever reason, I just thought Marvel was so much cooler than DC. I remember finding out that there was a character in the DC universe called Aqualad, and I could not handle how dorky that was. Aquaman is dorky. I'm kind of shocked that they made a movie of him. But in the comics, he has this sidekick, and the sidekick's not even called Aqua Boy, he's called Aqualad, which I just thought was too dorky to be a superhero. So when I found that out, I just kind of stopped buying DC comics. Most of the comics that I bought when I was a kid were Marvel. I do have to say, though, that these days I do love both universes, in part because they help me feed my family. I also started making comics. This is one of my favorite things about comic books, is that the dividing line between who is a reader and who is a creator is very permeable, very easy to cross. All you need are some pens and some paper and maybe like a healthy ignorance of your own artistic limitations. You just sit down and you draw a comic and you cross that line. My best friend in 5th grade was this kid named Jeremy Kimiyoshi, and during lunchtime, when our more athletic friends were playing tetherball, he and I would sit at the lunch tables and we would come up with stories. I would do all of the pencils, he would do all of the inks, and then we would give our original art to his mom, who would take him to work with her, wait till all of her coworkers went home, and then sneak photocopies for us. We took these photocopies. She was great. She was amazing. This is when she was my hero. We would take these photocopies, we'd staple them in the books, and then we would sell them to our friends for 50 cents a piece. That was the beginning of my comic book career. I think we made like $8, which was amazing for two 5th graders in the 80s. Now, since then, Jeremy has given up on comics. He no longer collects comics. I don't even think he reads comics anymore. He is now a radiologist. He's very successful. He lives in a big, beautiful house in California, which is really good for him. But I kept making comics. I kept making comics all the way into my adulthood. This right here is the very first comic I did as an adult. I put it out maybe a year or two after I graduated from college. It's called Gordon Yamamoto and the King of the Geeks. It's about a young man who gets a spaceship stuck inside his nose. And becomes friends with the alien who's driving the ship. It's loosely based on my own book. Now, about 10 years after this book, I got hooked up with a publisher called First Second Books, which is based out of New York. And with them, I published my very first full-color graphic novel, American Born Indians. This came out in the year 2006. I do have to say that the response to this book was kind of shocking to me. Librarians and teachers and bookstore owners and comic book fans all came out to support this book, and this support really changed my life. They paved the way for me to become the full-time cartoonist that I am today. And they also opened up all sorts of doors of opportunity for me. Up until this point, every single comic book that I did, every single graphic novel that I did both the writing and the drawing. I didn't normally do my own coloring. American Born Chinese was actually colored by a good friend of mine named Mark Pian. But I did do all the writing and the drawing. But after American Born Chinese, I got the opportunity to work with a bunch of different really amazing artists. So nowadays, for a lot of my projects, I only handle the writing and the art is handled by somebody else. So for example, I got to work on these 5 books right here. How many of you have ever seen the show called Avatar: Last Airbender? Okay, if you did not raise your hand, you should feel a little bit ashamed of yourself. This is an amazing show. I think this is probably the best animated series that America has ever produced. It ran on Nickelodeon from 2005 to 2008. And it was so popular they did the sequel show called The Legend of Korra. Now, in the world of Avatar, 70 years passed from the end of the first show to the beginning of the second show. So Nickelodeon asked this comic book company called Dark Horse Comics to produce a series of graphic novels that would fill in that 7-year gap. That would basically tell you what happens to Aang and all his friends as they get older. One of the editors at Dark Horse, she was familiar with my work. She called me up. She asked me if I would be willing to write these for them. I jumped at the chance because I'm a huge Avatar fan. This gig was a ton of fun. The best part of this was probably the fact that I got to call Mike DiMartino and Brian Reeves, the two animators who created that original series. And they totally call me back. It's awesome. It's like my best friends. I have their cell phone numbers in my cell phone right now. For these books, I got to work with these two amazing cartoonists based out of Japan. They call themselves Gurihiru. I think they're among the best working in IP comics today. I also got to work for both Marvel and DC. For Marvel, I worked on Shang-Chi, which is their kung fu superhero. They're the greatest fighter in the Marvel universe. And I got paired up with a bunch of amazing artists on that series. I got to work with Marcus Tu and DK Ruan. And then on the DC side, I worked mostly in the Superman group. This book right here, Superman Smashes the Klan, is a graphic novel that came out about 3 years ago. This is probably the DC book that I'm most well known for. And this I did with Gurihiru, that same team that I worked on Avatar Last Airbender with. So I've gotten to work with a lot of really amazing artists, and I have to say that one of the partners that I've had that I'm most excited about is Caldecott honor-winning illustrator LeUyen Pham.
Yeah, that's really hard to follow, because Gene's like, he's the comic book guy, right? I'm the picture book girl. I did picture books. You guys don't know me now, but you might have remembered me when you were a little kid. Like has been mentioned by Jane, I've done about 138 books. That's a lot of books by any measure, and it's, I don't know, when I look at that number, it doesn't quite make sense to me. Only about 8 of them are graphic novels, so that's actually not too bad. But I'm going to tell you how I got started a little bit too. That's me. That's me when I was 10. Or 9. And I was a pretty awkward little kid. A little bit about my backstory. So I was born in Vietnam during the war, and we came over right at the fall of Saigon. I was about 2 years old, or a year and a half. And when we first came to the United States, I knew no English, I knew only Vietnamese. I came with my 3 brothers and 1 sister, and my parents. And we started off, we were sent to Southern California, and everything we had was all through donations, right? Like the church would get you out there, Salvation Army would donate your clothes. The very first house we lived in was through like the sponsors. So the way I approached American culture was through all these charities when we first got to the United States. And that's how I learned of American culture, was through everything that was donated to us. So everything I wore was through donations, all of my clothes, all of like our bikes, our backpacks, everything that was given to us was through donations while my dad was trying to get a job. And I remember as a kid, like, how many of you guys remember, what are they called? I think they're called candies. Do you remember like those plastic shoes you wore? Jellies. I keep getting that wrong. Hopefully you kids will never experience this terrible, terrible treatment to your feet. But jellies, oh yeah, this is Missouri. Why would you wear jellies in Missouri? That makes no sense. But they are, in the summer, all right. They are plastic shoes. Plastic shoes that are usually like neon, they're super bright. They were really popular when Madonna, I guess, popularized them. And when I was a kid, everybody wore jellies. But the rule in my family was like, every year, each kid got 1 pair of shoes. And my brothers were cool. They would get like tennis shoes. They would ask for those. I wanted the jellies. I wanted it to fit in with the other kids. Do you understand that these jellies fall apart in 12 seconds? Like, that's it. And once they fall apart, because they're plastic, they snap. You cannot fix a snapped shoe. You can't use a paper clip. You can't use tape. Nothing will work. And that was the one pair I would get through. I was stupid and I asked for them twice 2 years ago. I never did it again. But I did get my jelly so I could fit in for at least a week in school. And it was sort of my way of entering into like American culture, to understand American culture better, because my parents really wanted all of us kids to understand it so we could teach it to them, right? So here I was, like starting school at the age of 5, and I was already able to read because I needed to understand the culture better. I was going to the library at a really young age and trying to absorb as much as I could through books because I couldn't understand American culture just by watching TV. Things like, why you don't take your shoes off when you go inside the house. No one explains that stuff on TV. But you might be able to figure out what people are thinking in their heads if you read books. Because that tells you what people are thinking, not just what people are saying. So I learned to read books really early on. It was my way in, and I loved books. The other way in that I used was I could draw. So I've been drawing since I was about 3 years old. I even remember like one of the first drawings I ever did was sitting next to my mom while she was on the phone and drawing in a phone book, and just that sensation of being able to draw. I think it was the beach I was trying to draw into the phone book. See this like bump on my finger? All right, this is like an old phenomenon. Young kids don't have this anymore. You guys do not have these bumps on your fingers. You type all the time. When I die, someone's gonna dig me up and see my bone and wonder what happened to my hand because of the bump that's on here. Since the age of 3, I've had that bump on there. That's how much I draw. And it was also my way of not just sort of entering culture, making friends in school. I would do drawings for kids and see for my friends. Not only that, I learned at a very early age that you could make money from drawings. So I was like the ilk of Jean over there, right? Like you could make these things, you could sell them at school. My very first commission drawing ever, it wasn't exactly commissioned. I was sitting in my classroom, I was about 8 years old. There was this girl named Cammie Monroe. She was the most popular girl in school because I think she started a TV commercial or something, So she was super popular, and I thought she looked like a doll. She was beautiful. And during a movie, I sat and I drew her profile. And she looked over at me and she was like, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's a drawing of you." And she pulled out $1 from her pocket, which, who has $1 in their pocket at school? And just slipped it on the table and said, "Can I have it?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I gave it to her. I quickly got the reputation of, if you pay Lynn, she'll draw something for you. And Little Twin Stars, Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes were super popular, so 50 cents a pop for those guys. Return of the Jedi was really popular when I had turned about 10 years old. That movie came out. I learned to draw Ewoks, no sweats. I learned how to draw kids as Han Solo or Luke Skywalker standing next to Chewbacca. Those were like $1. I would charge more if you had a portrait. And then the best time of the year was at the end of the school year. There would be the book festival. And at the book festival, they'd always have a contest, right? For a book poster, a book bookmark, a flyer. And every year I entered the contest, not because I was interested in winning, but because you got money to buy books at the book festival. So it was combining my two loves, and every year I won the festival. And in 6th grade, the big draw that year was that an artist named Bill Peet. Do you guys remember Bill Peet from Disney? He did the Tawny Scrawny Lion, the cartoon that went on Disney way back when. Anyways, look him up, he's done a bunch of books from like the 60s and 70s. He came to our school to speak. And of course, I got introduced to him because I won the book contest, and he looked at my work, and he was the first person I ever knew who made a living at drawing. And remember, immigrant family, right? It means that my parents had jobs designed for each one of us, right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. They never wanted to pay for professional services ever again. So each kid had this job prepared for them, and I was supposed to be the lawyer, right? No idea that you could actually make a living at drawing. I just thought it was something people did for fun on the side. So to meet a real life artist for the first time changed everything for me. And even though I did go to art school, I went to to UCLA, and I started to study law. About halfway through, I switched to law school, and it was like entering into a warm bath, like feeling at the right temperature with my body with what was outside of me. I've never felt that like such a keen understanding of I'm on the way I'm supposed to be since that moment. And since then, I've illustrated, like I said, so many books. You guys may recognize some of them. Do any of you guys know Alvin Ho? Yeah. Alvin Ho was a lot of good. Alvin Ho, what I loved about him was that he just happened to be Chinese and he was just so funny. And I just kept picturing him as Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. So when they asked me to illustrate this book, initially they had asked for a single illustration per chapter. And I said, look, I'm going to draw as many drawings as I want. I'm going to give you hundreds and hundreds of drawings. Don't art direct me and pick whatever you want. And they put every illustration in the book. That's why the book is illustrated the way it is. I'm also the creator of the Vampirina series, Vampirina on TV. And then the Princess in Black, you guys over there, this is my Princess in Black series. And I'm also the illustrator along with Shannon Hale of the Friends series, Best Friends and Real Friends. And I am not a comic book person. I have been somehow pulled into this field. And of course, I had to do this book with Jean, even though I felt like I'm not worthy, but we ended up being able to do this book together, which is thrilling for me. The comic book world is scary.
Luen and I have been friends for a very long time. We've been friends for about 20 years. When we met, my son was about 1 year old. He's now a college student at RIT. And Luen and her husband hadn't even had kids yet. So we've been friends for a long time. We've always talked about collaborating together, but it just took a very long time to figure out the right project and to squeeze into Luen's schedule. You know, when she's working on her 138 books, the window for you to get in is very, very small. Lunar New Year Love Story is about these two teenagers who grow up in Oakland, California, and they are both lion dancers. Not line dancers, lion dancers, which is an Asian art form. So they meet through the line dance troupe and they fall in love. The whole thing centers around Lunar New Year, so much so that it's part of the title. So I'm going to let Luen tell you a little bit about Lunar New Year.
So Lunar New Year, I'm not many Vietnamese people. Okay, so Lunar New Year is known as a lot of things. Lunar New Year is kind of a Western name given to the New Year for Asians, right? And each Asian culture kind of has their own way of approaching Lunar New Year. So for the Vietnamese, it's called Tet. And it is hands down the most important holiday of the entire year. The entire year cycles around the idea of the beginning of the new year. So in the book, we have a short explanation, which is word for word my mother's description of what Tet is. My mother's thrilled to be a co-writer of this book that she thinks is about her, and I'm not going to correct her on that. Tet is the most important of all Vietnamese holidays. It's the new year. It's a chance to start over, everything brand new, only good feelings to make good year. Americans call it Lunar New Year. And it's actually so much more than that. But I think the way a lot of Westerners see Tet, or New Year, is this. You see big crowds, you see lion dance scenes, you see red lanterns everywhere, you see the streets are filled with all these beautiful bright colors and signs, and cherry blossoms are all over the place, and people are generally happy and smiling. One of the few times they're really, really smiling on the streets out there, right? And of course, you've got your fireworks, you've got all those sort of celebrations. I think that's what Westerners see when they see New Year. And what Easterners see, what Asians see is this. At home, you have your altar. And the idea is that you are trying to start the New Year off with nothing but good luck. Luck is incredibly important to Asians. And so you have an altar at home, and the people, the entities that are going to bring you luck are going to be your ancestors. Your ancestors have to be enticed to come down from their place, hopefully in heaven, and bless your house. So the way to get your ancestors to come down is to present in front of their altar a lot of food that you cannot touch, right? It's like the best offerings of the house that you yourself are not allowed to touch, a bowl of rice, meats, cakes, fruits, vegetables, they're all placed in front, and it's all very celebratory. And the idea is that the incense will attract your ancestors to come down, they'll come, they'll partake of the food, and then they'll bless the rooms of the house so that you have a good luck in the new year. And part of all that is, of course, the food. The food is a really, really big part of Lunar New Year. For the Vietnamese, we have something called bánh mì, which are these two cakes, and they were first created by, I think it was the 16th century. The Vietnamese emperor at the time sent out a contest to try to have his sons, I think he had 23 sons, create sons only. Why not women? I don't know. He sent off his 23 sons to try to find the ultimate dessert or food to represent Vietnam. So the sons went off into the world except for the youngest son. And the youngest son was the most humble, and he dreamt one night of a fairy coming and explaining to him that he needed to use the elements of Vietnam to make his cake. So he woke up and he took rice, which is the staple of Vietnamese cooking. He took pork, which represents the land. He took mung beans, which represents farming. He wrapped it in banana leaves and he steamed it. And there are two cakes. One is the square cake that represents earth, and the circle represents heaven. And presented it, and of course, he won the contest and became the next emperor. So every year we celebrate by eating these cakes. They look like they're salty, but what you do is you slice them, and then you fry them, and then you dip them in sugar. And it's amazing. It's really amazing. I really have to force you guys to eat them next time. So there's lion dancing that's involved. I want to make sure you guys can see what lion dancing looks like up close. And probably the big aspect that we all love from Lunar New Year is the red envelope.
That's right, red envelopes were my favorite part of Lunar Year. Does anyone know what's inside of these red envelopes? Anyone know what's inside? When did you get red envelopes? Is that why you know? Okay, good. Yeah, so when I was a kid, my parents were fairly cheap, mostly because they were immigrants. I did not get an allowance. The only time I ever had cash flow was during Lunar New Year when I would get these red envelopes from all of my relatives. So in Chinese culture and most Asian cultures, during Lunar New Year, adults will give children red envelopes. And the act of giving a red envelope is a way of giving good luck for yourself. The fact that there's money inside, that's actually a very Chinese thing. Maybe it's a very Asian thing in general, but in Chinese, the way you say Happy New Year is 恭喜发财, which literally translates to, I hope you get rich. So during Lunar New Year, all these Chinese people are going around telling each other that they hope they get rich. Because red envelopes are such an important part of both of our memories of Lunar New Year, we decided to have them play a very, very important role in our story. The red envelope actually ends up being the inciting incident. So in a story, the inciting incident is the thing that happens that kind of kicks off all of the other action. In one of our scenes, our main character, her name is Valentina. She goes to a Lunar New Year festival, and at that festival, she's approached by a lion, and the lion gives her a red envelope. So a human hand comes out of the lion's mouth.
Big no-no.
And yes, it is a big no-no. It gives her a red envelope. So we actually had a lion dancing expert as one of our consultants, and she told us that this is something you definitely should not do. If you're a lion dancer, you're never supposed to break the illusion of being a lion. So no human body parts should be coming through the lion's mouth. But in the story, this boy is so taken with her that he decides to break that rule in order to hand her a red envelope. Inside of that red envelope is not what you would normally find. It's not money. It's actually a Valentine, and that kicks off the entire story. Now, the way this idea came about of doing a rom-com set around Lunar New Year is actually, like on my side at least, the origins are from my college years. So in college, I had this girlfriend. This is me and her at my college graduation. When I met her, I met her when I was a junior in college. As soon as we met, I knew I liked her. You know, there were like these sparks between us. And we dated for a while. I really liked a lot of things about her. She's very kind, she's very funny, she's very smart, she's also very cute. But one of the things I liked the most about her was she just has this really, really strong opinion. So while we were dating in college, she really hated Valentine's Day. She thought that Valentine's Day was like this corporate scam made up by companies to sell us candy and sells cards. She never wanted to celebrate Valentine's Day, but I really liked her. So I wanted to celebrate Valentine's Day with her. And I figured out a workaround. And my workaround was to celebrate Lunar New Year with her in a very Valentine's-y way. You know, even though Lunar New Year is on the Eastern calendar and Valentine's Day is on the Western calendar, they're usually right next to each other. Like this year, they're only 4 days apart, and sometimes they're even on the same day. So when we were dating, when February rolled around, I would take my girlfriend out to Lunar New Year dinner. I would buy her Lunar New Year presents. I'd even draw her these cards. This is a recreation of a card that I drew for her. It'd be a Lunar New Year card, but like the dragons and the phoenixes would be in the shape of hearts. And it worked. Every year she agreed to go with me to Lunar New Year dinner, even though she would never agree to go with me to Valentine's Day dinner. Eventually, we did break up. I got dumped. And I got dumped for lots of different reasons. Like, for example, I was very immature at the time. I didn't really have a good vision for my own life. But one of the biggest reasons why I got dumped was because she told me that she was thinking about being a nun. And I think that's why in Lunar New Year, there are lots of nuns. It was my way of expressing the trauma of that experience. Now, I'm sure you all look like very romantically successful people, so you may not have had this experience, but getting dumped, getting your heart broken is not a fun experience. I was just not doing very well after my girlfriend broke up with me. But nowadays, I'm like 30 years out from the moment I got dumped. When I look back on that time, I can see that the year after we broke up was actually a pretty good year. Lots of stuff happened to me. First, I started going to comic book conventions, and at these comic book conventions, I met other young cartoonists around my age, around the same stage of career that I was at, who were all looking to break into the comic book industry. These days, many of these guys are my closest friends. So I started hanging out with them. I would get critiques from them of my own work. We would trade tooltips. We would start hanging out pretty regularly. And in part because of their encouragement, I also began self-publishing comics. I published Gordon Yamamoto in The King of the Geeks during that year that, right after I got dumped. And finally, I also found a job. I found a job at high school, Bishop Odette High School in Oakland, California. I found a job as a high school computer science teacher. I really loved that job. I stayed there for 17 years because I loved it so much. All of this happened during that year after I got dumped. So it ended up being this year where, I got a vision for my life. It kind of set the tone. That year kind of set the tone for the rest of my adulthood. And again, when I look back on that year and I think about why that year turned out well, I think about this. This, of course, is the yin yang symbol. This is ubiquitous in Asian culture. And this symbol actually represents these two different aspects of life. So there's the yin, that is the black part of the symbol. That represents a lot of things, but one of the things it represents is passivity. And then the yang, which is the white part, represents activity. And the symbol is supposed to kind of say, you have to hold these two things in balance. I think when you get broken up, your temptation is to be very passive. You don't even feel like getting up out of bed anymore, because you feel so sad. But you have to maintain balance. So even though you feel passive, you should be active. And I think that's what I did. During that year after I got dumped, I was very active. This idea, like I said, is found all over Asia. It's expressed sometimes differently in different cultures. This right here is the Korean version of the yin yang. It's the Yang. And then the passive part is represented by the blue. The active part is represented by the red. We actually have a character in our book called Uncle LeUyen Pham, who is an artist, and he does art around this idea. We want to include this because this was such an important part of my own romantic experiences when I was young, So right here, he's using his art, which is based on the Korean version of the yin yang, to explain these ideas to these two kids, and he's kind of a mentor to these two kids. So we even talk about, we go into pretty heavy detail about this, like passive and active energies. Again, because it was such an important part of my own experience. And in case you were wondering, it kind of worked out for me. So after that year of being active, almost to the day that I got dumped, well after I'd stopped thinking about her every day, I got a call from my ex-girlfriend. She told me that she had decided she was definitely not going to be a nun, and that she was interested in getting back together. So eventually we got married. We have been married for 23 years. We have 4 kids. So it all worked out.
So, okay, so Gene is a huge romantic, right? Like, I didn't know that about him, but he was a huge romantic. So when he contacts me and he's like, "Man, I want to do a rom-com with you." And I'm excited, I'm thinking, "Oh, I can't wait to see this." And he sends me over the script, and I'm reading it, and I'm realizing the calm is all there. It's not very warm. The romance is missing from it. And I think as I was analyzing it, it's not because he's not a good writer. It's because you can't show romance in words. Like, words are the worst way to depict romance. You have to show them in actions. You have to show them in behaviors, in like the electricity between people. That's how romance is expressed, which is a tall order for a graphic novel, right? So I did my research. I sat. Gene gave me a list of movies he wanted me to watch, a list of like K-dramas that he and his wife Teresa watched together, and I studied them all. And I started to go through all of these movies that are supposed to be the generic romantic movie format, right? So we're gonna take Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind is not a romance. I'm really sorry, but it is like the least romantic. He's a jerk and she's a brat, and you kind of want them to get shot somewhere. Like, enough already. So when they kiss, you're kind of like, "Oh, please don't procreate because you don't need more people like you in the world." So for me, no. I got one and I watched. I'm looking for first kisses. So Sound of Music. There's a scene where I'm 16, you are 17. Doesn't quite hold up these days. But there is the scene where they kiss, and I'm watching them kiss, no sparks, 0 sparks, right? It's like a boy kissing his dog, is what it feels like, right? Like, nothing's happening here. No good. Okay, the teen set's not working for me. I watch Breakfast at Tiffany's. Breakfast at Tiffany's is a terribly romantic movie, but I never found the kissing that appealing for 3 main reasons. The first is when they go for it, they miss. They miss, right? It's like, he kind of almost hits her ear. The second is it's pouring on them, and her makeup isn't even coming off her face. And the third is, look at the cat! There's a wet cat stuck between them. I defy anyone to feel romantic sparks with a wet, squirting, most likely drugged up cat between you, wanting to go to wait for you. So me, it didn't work right. My sons are all into Star Wars, and they squirm through this part all the time, right? I have to admit, I squirm too. But I started to feel a little bit of something, and I couldn't figure out why exactly am I feeling something. If you look, there's the moment where she looks at him, and she kind of touches his face. And I realized, the touch is important, right? The touch is important because it's something about anticipation. And then, Han Solo and Princess Leia. All right, I am a child of the 80s, so therefore I'm a little bit, biased towards this. But when I saw this kiss, I remember at the hot age of 11, I was impressed by what was happening. And I think it's because you spend the entire first movie watching these 2 people hate on each other, but they're really attracted to each other, and you're waiting for that moment to happen, and it never happens. So when it happens in Empire Strikes Back, something feels good, right? It's the restraint of it not being able to happen. Something in there is romantic. So I watched Princess Bride, right? Because at the end of Princess Bride, it's defined as the greatest kiss of all time, right? The kiss to end all kisses. So I'm watching Carrie Elways and Robin up there, and they're looking at each other, and I realized there are 3 parts to a kiss. Okay, 3 parts to a kiss. We've been doing this in front of kids in high school, by the way. Boy, are they uncomfortable, but boy, are they taking notes. So the first part of the kiss is call it the gaze. And this is the part where your eyes lock from across the room, whatever it is, and you wonder, can I go in for this kiss? Can I make that kiss? And the gaze allows you to do it. It's the silent yes, right? If the person looks away, that's a no. But if the gaze locks and there's a bit of a tremulous smile, you can go in for it. That's the gaze. The second is the moment just before the anticipation. That's when the electricity actually sparks between you. Like your brain is nothing but electrical signals, right? Right before a kiss, that's where the electricity happens. That's why the touch is essential. You touch that person's face, and the electricity from your fingers enters into that person's face, and you get the tingles down your back, down your spine, everything. The anticipation. And the last part is the actual kiss. Okay, raise your hands. Which part is the most exciting, the most romantic for you? Is it the gaze? Is it the anticipation? Is it the kiss? All right, we've been to 5 schools, and we've done this survey across all 5 schools. You guys are exactly in line with teenagers all across the United States. Everyone agrees that it's the anticipation. It's that moment right before the kiss where all that electricity happens. So now I've got the elements of romance visually, right? And I've got to put it into this book. So we've got in this book our character Val here, and she's got a little love triangle going on. She's got our K-pop cute boy here, Les, and his little more staunchy cousin Jay, and they're both sort of interested in her, and she doesn't know quite what to fall for. So she comes in with these lion dance, and she wants to do lion dance with them. And lion dance, if you know anything about lion dance, how many of you guys have actually seen a lion dance happen? Okay, when you're watching it, you're not supposed to realize that there are 2 people underneath there. Those 2 people become a single creature, right? Those 2 people become a single creature with a single heartbeat. The drum is supposed to represent heartbeat. That is the most romantic idea you can ever imagine. 2 people sharing one heartbeat. It's terribly romantic. The perfect set of physics. So she's here training with her K-pop cutie over there. He's trying to make all the moves, but he doesn't quite understand the romance part. And I show it as straightforward as possible, right? Nothing terribly romantic about this. It doesn't quite work. Until the lion starts to take over. And they start to sort of meld into each other's movements a little bit more. Things soften up. And as their movements start to go into sync, as they start to feel the beat of that one heartbeat, it becomes terribly romantic. But, foreshadowing, this character, you're seeing it in a mirror. Les sees everything through reflections. He likes to see the impression of things rather than the natural things. So when they go on dates, you can tell right away it's terribly romantic. He's got the lights, he's got the romantic restaurant, he's got the candles, he's got like the great desserts. But there's always something separating him from her. It's always his phone. Teenagers, we all know this. And the phone is what defines a relationship for him, what things look like. Such that when we have our princess and princess bride moments, and he's about to kiss her, there it goes with the gaze. There it goes with the anticipation. And hold it. There it is with the gaze. Not quite what you want, right? So contestant number 2, bachelor number 2, he comes up, and I'm thinking Jay is to Val what Darcy is to, I can't remember the name, the character of Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth Bennet. So that is how they equal each other. What they say never matches what they feel. Han Solo, Princess Leia, all over again. So you've got Jay and Val, and they are forced by some circumstance to dance together at this one dance. And they're going through the dance, and as they're going through the dance, they become that one line. And it is not a reflection, it is one line. And they come together, one lion, one heart. Such that when the dance is over, they rush off the stage, they pull off their costumes, they look at each other. There's the game. There's the game. There's the anticipation. There's the anticipation. You have to read the book to find out.
All right. We we have some time for Q&A, but before we do Q&A, you know, I know a lot of artists. I'm an artist myself. I hang out with lots of artists, but I have to say, out of all of my artist friends, Luen is probably among the most elite. Not just for the quality,
I can't even say that.
not just for the quality of her drawings, but also the speed with which she can draw. So I thought it'd be fun for all of us to see a demonstration of her showing her superpower. But for her to do this, she is going to need a volunteer. We are hoping, you know, the main character of our book is about 17 years old. We're hoping that we can get somebody around 17. Is there anyone who's 17? Is there anyone who's 17?
Come on, I don't. Wait, are you 17?
No, I'm not 17.
Well, we need a
Hold on.
17. She's 18.
18's close. 18's close.
18?
Let's do 18.
18. She's 17-year-old in this.
All right, 18. Let's do 18.
All right.
Let's do 18.
And then after this, because we have some smaller kids here who've been waiting patiently, we're also going to do another little drawing, special just for you guys, okay? So stay put. All right, come on over. What's your name?
Ellie.
Ellie.
I don't
All
know.
right, we're going to turn Ellie into a comic book character. Should we draw her just as she is, or should we throw her in a costume?
Costume.
A costume? What kind of costume do you want to wear?
I mean,
whatever you want.
okay, just.
Okay, can I be like flying through the sky?
Sure.
Okay. Turn you into Superman. Do you have Alright, I'm gonna try sketching you. Try sketching you out first. Okay. Ready? So, the really important part about drawing a character is actually not the face, it's the body. So, we want you to be like really powerful. Okay, there you go. So, I'm gonna have your head kind of going back in this powerful sort of stance like this, right? And then you're gonna have your chest like this. We're gonna have your legs go right off. We're gonna do the Superman thing like that. The hands out like that. And the cape is gonna go that way. So okay. All right, let's start with that. All right, so we're gonna look this way. There you go. There. Look powerful. All right. Look powerful. We're gonna have your eyes looking towards the sun with brightness shining. We're gonna have such sparkling eyes. We're gonna have her smiling because she's so happy that she's a superhero flying through the sky, as you should be if you're flying through the sky. Her hair is going to be flying behind her, okay? She's leaving her back. There we go. We'll give her the. He's like that. And then we're going to give you your outfit. All right. What do you want in your outfit? What's your superpower?
Good question.
Reading? All right, reading. That is such a good answer. All right, reading is everyone's superpower, really. All right, so we're going to give you an equivalent of a book. Okay? We're going to do this. We'll have an open book. I am an open book for sure. Her shoulders sweeping around this way. Arms are going to be going back. I never know why they fly that way. Is it like for aerodynamics?
Yeah, aerodynamics. You should read more superhero comics.
Going to have to, absolutely. All right. Wait, we're going to give you like a special bracelet too, because, you know, Wonder Woman can't be the only one. That.
A book light too.
A book light? A book light? Through the air. We're gonna have the rest of the costume coming down this way. Like that. Do you want a cape or do you want a skirt or do you want like Gurihiru, come on. Like that. Boots?
Sure, yes.
I have to admit, admit, I was into X-Men. X-Men and Wolverine was my favorite.
X-Men were the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was because they were mutants and they were outsiders, and I always went for the outsiders.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty much.
Thank you so much.
Here you go! Okay.
You have to sign that one.
Oh, I've got to sign it, and here, you got this. Oh, okay, all right, I need the little kids now. I am also the illustrator of the Princess and Live series. We've had these kids, and they're falling asleep on me. Literally passed out before. So I'm gonna ask, what do you want me to draw? Should I draw you a monster? Should I draw you a princess? What would you like me to draw you? Do you want me to, you know what? I'll draw you as a princess in your book. Do you want me to design a monster up here? You want to help me? Can you help me? Come on out. Okay, so you're gonna do the favor for me. All right, so the Princess and Black books, there are about 10 of them out. Each of the books has a monster in them. And when I first designed the monsters, what I did was I used my sons, who were about 3 and 5 at the time, to help me design the monsters. You know what they did for me? I'm gonna give you this marker. You're gonna make a big shape for me, okay? Can you make a shape, whatever shape you want? Can you make any shape you want? Like a circle, a square, a squiggle, anything you want. Go ahead. A big one, make it a big one. That's a solid shape. All right. Solid shape, right? It's almost the size of her, by the way. So, okay. Now you know it. Delphia. How many eyes should this monster have? 2. Okay, 2. Big eyes or little eyes? Little eyes. Okay, we're gonna make teeny monster eyes then. Is that okay? Should I give it any lashes at all? No lashes. What kind of nose should this monster have? Like a big nose, like a dragon nose, like a bear nose, a dog nose, a bunny nose? What kind of nose? Or your nose? I can try your nose. Your nose? No. A bunny nose? All right. How about a nose like this? Does that work? Can that work? Okay. Should we give it like sort of a mustache or something? No mustache. Big teeth or little teeth? Big teeth. One big tooth, lots of big teeth, or like just tiny little teeth? 1, 2. Because not long ago it was just 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. 1 enormous tooth like that. Does something like that work? Should we make it hairy, or should we make it scaly, or should we make it like a lizard? What kind? You want a lot of hair? No? You want it like a lizard? Okay, we're gonna make it scaly then. We're gonna make this thing a scaly monster. And should this monster have any horns? 1 horn, 2 horns, 3 horns? How many horns? 3 horns. Okay, I'm gonna make them squiggly horns. Okay. Yes. This way. And then 1 big horn in the middle. Okay. What kind of ears should they have? Big floppy ears like an elephant? Ears like a little cat? Ears like a little dog? Ears like a bunny? You want to do a bunny? Or dog ears? Sharp ears or soft ears? Want to do sharp ears? Do sharp ears, right? Like that. Does that work? Okay. vote of confidence from the little one in the audience there. And then, ooh, I'm gonna open up this mouth right here. I'm gonna put a little tooth down there. Is that okay? And a little sharp tongue. Is that okay? And then, do you want like an octopus tentacles, or do you want claws, or do you want lots of legs, or what would you like? Tentacles? Like an octopus? Okay, tentacles like an octopus. Ready? Like that. Tentacles like that. And because this is a library event, this is going to be a very literate monster. And this monster is going to be holding a book and possibly eating a book. There we go. Because you have to eat your books to understand what's going on in the book. There we go. Like this. Looks tasty really good. And then just this one right here. And this one right here. And then last question I have to ask you, should it have wings or no wings? Wings, all right. Pretty pathetic ones, okay. One wing and two wings. And we're gonna name this monster Delphiosaurus. All right? Wow. Delphiosaurus. There you go, Delphia. There you go. All right. So I think we can open up to a couple.
Sure. Do you all have any questions for either me or Win?
What's your favorite K-drama?
Favorite K-drama? I can tell you the ones I watched to prepare to write
Yes.
Lunar Love Story. Two of the well, we watched Crash Landing on You,
Okay.
which my wife says is required watching for anybody who's interested in K-dramas. I really like Startup, which is like a Silicon Valley like rom-com, and I also really like this one called Love Alarm,
Oh, yeah.
which is about this app that tells you when somebody in your vicinity has a crush on you. Both horrifying and amazing. Any other questions?
What are next projects for each of you? Or have you thought that far ahead?
Yeah. I have actually
No pressure.
too many to talk about. I've got another Princess and Black. I got another Kitty Corn. I have a book called The Man Who Didn't Like Animals. It's a picture book. Check it out. It's actually going to be really good for me. I have another graphic novel because Jane got the bite in me, and this next one is also a teen romance, but it's a tragedy. And it's really, I'm very excited about it, but I'm not allowed to see this edited. It's based on the myth of Eurydice and Nothingness.
I'm working on a series called Books of Clash, which is based on the Clash of Clans video game, mobile game, one of the most popular mobile games in the world. We already have 2 volumes that have come out. One was about Hog Riders, the other one was about archers, and then this year we have Gollum and Valkyrie. Is there one last question we can answer before we sign? Go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. What makes less K-pop?
Well, okay, I gotta tell you the backstory of this, okay? When we were designing the characters for Lunar Love Story, you have to remember, like I said, I normally do picture books. I don't ever do Hollywood casting calls like this. But there was this little creative team. It was our 2 editors, and Jean and me. And I drew all these characters, what I thought they would look like, and I made less. I think Jean's description was he looked like he had an Instagram filter on all. This is how he described it. So I went through and looked at like all the K-pop bands. I looked at. Jean actually sent me all these pictures of what he thought constituted a cute boy. Not my idea of what constituted a cute boy, by the way.
We have very different taste in men.
Yeah, let's trust me on this one. Okay? But we went through the whole cycle. I ended up drawing kind of based on a crush that I had when I was in high school myself, like a cute guy. As well as I went through, my son is the age of the characters in the book. So I surveyed them, and all the girls told me, this is what we think is cute. And it was not muscular, it's not bulky, it was actually slender, with the broad shoulders, but not a whole lot of muscles, and they just needed the hair. The hair had to be the thing. And so that's what I drew. And then Jay, I basically drew G. I drew G for Jay, right? And we set this, and I showed it to the editors, and they're looking at it, and across the board, they say the same thing. Jay needs to look cuter.
Yeah, it does. That was my
Jay
joke.
needs to look cuter. And they were going on and on about how easy to quite have it in the face, and blah, 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 blah. And I finally said, look, Jay's Gene, so stop it, fashion on Jay. And second is, you don't know what he'll look like until he starts acting. Like, it's not how you look at the page, it's how you act on the page. And I hadn't made him act. So once I put him in and started giving him some acting chops, then it wasn't really a matter what he looked like anymore. So that's how we got K-pop is there.
Yeah, Wynn did an amazing job with all of the character stuff. You'll see the book if you haven't already. So at this point, I think we can start the signing. Wynn does this crazy thing where she will draw a portrait of you in every book, every copy of Lunar that we read her. It's kind of nuts. And what I like to do with the signing, if it's okay, is can we do it like airplane style? If you have kids that are young enough where you can go on the airplane first, let's have you come to life.
Let's have you come first. And for the kids, because they've been waiting patiently, I'll draw like a couple faces in there. Everyone else, one face per book, okay? So kids can be one in the book. And if the person's not here, have it ready to go on your phone, searching when you get here, okay? Have it ready to go. So.
Yeah, so we'll be over here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.